Yeah, they took a break.
No, I told you, like,
Okay, guys, so do you feel like you know your neighbor a little bit better? All right, hopefully you got something in common. Mercy. A friend of mine. Mercy. All right, so thank you all again. I hope you feel a little more connected to your neighbor, because that is one of the purposes, one of our missions, I should say, here at Manning's. We are a community space to enrich the civic engagement of the community, to be a place where politics and fun can come together and we can go out and change the world, one issue, one conversation, one interaction at a time. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much. You are in for a treat. If you aren't already on our mailing list, I urge you to make sure you go to welcometomannings.com and sign up. We have so much stuff going on. Manny's going to tell you a little bit about that towards the end of the program. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my portion of the evening by saying we are so grateful, truly honored to have the president of the Board of Supervisors for the great city of San Francisco, Shamann Walton. Why don't you come on up? Conversation with our own Manny.
Thank you, Precious. We are so lucky to have you in the space, and I really appreciate that. And you'll be hearing a lot more from Precious over the coming months. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I don't know.
Is it not on? Is it number 2 maybe? Ram, our head of operations, will address it. So first of all, let's just get into it. You just came off a break. How was it? What was a highlight? What did you do with your recess? You needed it? Give us like a snippet.
Well, technically, we're supposed to still be on break for the rest of the month, but I've been,
Wait a second, you stopped? You're still on break and you're here?
well, we never break, you know that.
Okay, yeah.
There's no such thing as a break. But we have, we're not in session during August. But I've been able to travel, been to a couple of states during this time period, and just been having fun with the family, and got one more place to go at the end of the month. So I'm enjoying my time traveling and also spending time in community differently.
And you had there were some family moments I think I saw on the social medias. I feel like things happened, some milestones. Do you want to share?
I celebrated my 4th year anniversary.
Mazel tov. A big round of applause for that. Still single over here on this side of the stage. It's great. Okay.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Say what?
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Okay, we'll do. What else? There was a milestone.
That's really it in terms of
Got it.
milestones, but definitely just been a good month. A lot of time with family, and again, still have an opportunity to be in community.
How are you feeling right now? Like, could you give me 2 words to describe your emotional state at this very moment?
Hopeful and distressed.
Hopeful and distressed. And does that resonate with other people? Yeah, totally. Me too. You've been the president of the Board of Supervisors for 7 months, roughly. You're the first Black man to be the president of the Board of Supervisors. Let's start with that. Tell me why you think it's important that there's a Black man running our Board of Supervisors right now in our city, in our country, in our politics.
Well, first thing I think is important that as the first Black man that's president of the Board of Supervisors, that I'm not the last. And so that I do things that are going to provide opportunity for folks to be able to come behind me. But if you look at the fact that we're probably less than 5% of the population right now, and we say we're a city that wants to do everything that we can to bring up the Black population and support the Black population, it's very important that we have leadership that looks like me, so that people who look like me here in the city understand that we still can get things done and be in leadership roles. And so that's my main thing, is to really execute and be the best I can be in this role, but also make sure that opportunity comes for those that are behind me.
Amazing. And actually, I wanted to ask you a question before that has nothing to do with that. So if we go back a second. Okay, so very selfishly, I've known you for a few years now. You and I had breakfast at Stable Cafe before your run for supervisor. I remember like, oh my God, maybe three or 4 years ago or something. And one of the things that I think is so amazing about you is you seem so unfazed. You're so cool, calm, and collected. And I wanted to ask your advice on something.
Okay.
I'm ready. So there's this guy. He lives in New York and he's a med student. And he's definitely not watching this, so I can ask. And he's like super cool like you. You're like he's doing his thing, whatever. I, on the other hand, I'm the son of an Ashkenaz Jewish mother. And so unfortunately, I've inherited all of that anxiety and worry about everything. And I'm not doing a very good job of staying cool, calm, and collected. I'm like, why isn't he texting me? Why isn't he calling me? So what would your like top relationship tips be for someone who's like dating someone kind of, and they're not texting them enough, and freaking out, and like waiting for them to text me, and they're not texting me? Like, how would you, like, what are your like top 3 tips?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna say, being the president of the Board of Supervisors does not qualify me to get a But what I will say is, I think that in everything that we do, it's important to not necessarily let people know how anxious you are, to not let people know, because there's value to that, and so I never. The way I try to live my life is to not stress off of the things that I can't control. And it's not easy, but I would say always put your best foot forward, have your conversations, reach out to the person, but also don't stress off the parts of what you're trying to accomplish that you don't control.
So if he hasn't texted me in 2.5 days, and I called him the last time, should I call him again or just wait until he calls me?
I would need to know more about the dynamic of the relationship.
We don't have enough time for that tonight.
Before I would say like, yeah, it's not an interest. I'm not like I don't know enough about the whole relationship to respond to that.
What's your favorite restaurant in the Bay View?
Well, so that's the trick question.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because there are several restaurants that I go to that I love having a good time. I get to enjoy. They let me smoke cigars outside. Versus where I go to eat.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's the only reason I said that. But I love all my restaurants today.
Can you tell me about cigars though? I mean, like, why? I've seen you do it, but I'm like, I don't get it. Can you explain to me? Explain to me the appeal of a cigar.
It's just relaxing.
But like more relaxing than a cigarette?
I would never, I don't smoke cigarettes. And
But just cigars?
And I fight against cigarettes.
I see.
Yeah.
And that cigar should be allowed on the Board of Supervisors chamber? Why not?
Absolutely.
It would make for a cool image though.
Absolutely.
Like you sitting there in the back on the top of the
As much as
dais,
I would love that.
smoking a cigar. Like I would honestly pay for a framed photo of that.
As much as I would love that, no.
Takes it back 100 years.
I know, that would be perfect. How do you feel optimistic about the next like 3-4 months about our city's recovery? We were talking about this earlier about like, she's a bit of a tough moment right now. Few people are scared, nervous, what's going on, masks are back, there's people are worried. How are you feeling? Are you feeling like we just need to get through the next few weeks? Are you also scared? Are you, sunshine and gumdrops? Where are you?
That's why it goes back to the two, quite, hopeful and distressed. Extremely hopeful that we can get back to a point where we were pre-pandemic. Obviously, this Delta variant is really causing major issues and more and more folks are being affected. And so I'm hopeful because if people get the vaccine, if people still wear the mask, if they still practice social distancing, then we'll be able to keep folks safe. But I'm distressed because we're obviously going backwards in a lot of ways. We have a mask mandate now back in the city. We're going to be requiring vaccination proof when you walk in restaurants and when you walk into certain facilities. And part of that is because folks who are not vaccinated are living like they are.
Right.
And so it's I'm very hopeful, but at the same time, if people don't change behavior, it's gonna get problematic more so than it is now, and that's what I'm scared of.
Got it. So let's just go through your tenure as president of the Board of Supervisors. I was reading an article today from when you first were elected by your colleagues to be president, and Matt Haney said, the thing about Shamann is he's not about drama at all. You're not like Mr. Drama. Has it been hard to stay out of drama as the president of the Board of Supervisors and rise above it all? And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's always hard to stay out of drama. The thing for me as board president is I try to make sure that all of my colleagues are supported and have what they need for us to be able to do our job. Whether we agree on politics, whether we agree on policies, the main thing for me is to make sure that everybody is treated equitably to be able to accomplish the goal of what we need to do as members of the board. And so I've been, worked very hard to stay out of drama. Is it hard? Not hard for me to stay out of drama with my colleagues. Drama outside of my colleagues, we love it. That's what we do for a living. But my goal and focus is to make sure that my colleagues are supported and have what they need, even when we disagree, which can be hard sometimes.
So like, okay, let's go through. So think about all the family sitcoms out there: Brady Bunch, Seventh Heaven.
That's not a sitcom.
Seventh Heaven's not a
It's
sitcom.
not a sitcom.
What are some family shows? What Modern Family? Do you see where I'm going with this? What equivalent family TV show or sitcom would you equate the current Board of Supervisors with? Like if you had to compare it to one family TV show, what family is it right now?
Oh, wow.
Curveball.
Yeah, I mean, sitcoms are my thing too, by the way, but I've never looked at the board in terms of a sitcom or a TV show, or even a drama. Let me answer that question later, as I have time to think while we're talking,
Yeah,
because I want to come up with the right one.
yeah. I
And
think this is.
I can come up with a good answer.
So tell me about taking the gavel remotely. So you became the president in January of 2021. Your meetings have all been remote until recently. What was it like running the board of this, of a major city, from your living room?
It was weird. I mean, and from the onset of the pandemic, I've still been going to City Hall. So even when I got elected board president, and prior to that, I was attending meetings in my office. But it was very weird. Not so much when I became board president, because we had several months, even when Supervisor Yee was board president, that we were on Zoom. So it's just way different. It's less dynamics involved. You don't have the opportunity to engage with the public. And so it was very weird, but it was the norm at the time.
Mm-hmm.
When I became president of the board, so it wasn't as weird of an adjustment per se. But going back into the chamber, which has been exciting. We still obviously don't have the public, but that was a switch in the dynamic. Going back in the chamber and actually serving as the board president and trying to get used to that format. And we've only had a couple of meetings in the chamber, so it's still something that I'm working on getting used to.
It's a bit of a meta question, but I've been thinking a lot about how regular people become elected officials and politicians, and how that could change them, and how sometimes we forget that they're actually people. And sometimes when you've been really in it, you are in a place where you're never able to turn it off. Like you go from being elected official and you go to the gym in the morning and people are coming at you at the gym, and then you do your official work, then you go home to an event and you've never had time to actually take that off and just be Shamann or just be whatever. And if that happens for long enough, my sense is that you actually lose the ability to be the person who is not representative or supervisor or mayor. And I wanted to ask you about that because I've known you before you were elected official, before you were president, and you've been doing this. And one of the things I love about you is that you seem to be able to do a good job of still being a real human being. And I'm not equating you to this person at all, but I've been thinking a lot about Andrew Cuomo and how, and in general, how if you're in power for too long, you start to lose your mind almost and do crazy, terrible things. And so I guess my question is to you about like that process. Are you experiencing that at all? Not the Andrew Cuomo thing, obviously, but like the difficulty of turning off I'm an elected official, turning on, I'm just a regular person, and how are you dealing with that?
Well, I mean, I think one, for me, I always wake up in the morning knowing I'm a regular person. Wake up in the morning knowing I'm a Black man, and that's how people perceive me, no matter what my role in life is. But I am fortunate enough to be in a position to serve the community where I'm from. And so I spend a lot of time in my neighborhoods, in my communities, and I don't approach when I'm out as I'm the president of the Board of Supervisors more so than I'm somebody who lives in Baby Hunters Point, and I like to spend time in Petroleum. I like to spend time in Dog Patch. I like to spend time in Viz Valley, and of course, I like to spend time in Bayview. And that's how I move around in my district. And that's also how I approach the day-to-day work. I am someone who has experienced the issues and concerns that the people in my district have, and fortunately in a position to be able to do something to address those concerns and work to solve some of the problems that exist. And so every day I wake up as Shamann Walton from Baby Hunters Point, who loves the work that he gets to do. And I know it's cliches when people talk about the fact that when you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life, but that's the reality. So even when out at Cafe Envy, having a drink and hanging out every single Friday when I'm in town, people come up to me and want to talk to me about things that they have concerns with. It's still, Shamann having a conversation with a constituent. But I also found, for me, the more time you spend in the community, the more visible you are, the more people see you, the less it's an anomaly that your supervisor is hanging out in your neighborhood, if that makes sense. And that's the way I try to approach it.
So it's almost like the more authentic you are about that work, the less it feels like work.
Definitely, and also maybe they get tired of seeing me and get tired of talking.
Right, they're like, I already talked about my problem. I don't need to come up to him again.
Right.
I told him.
Right.
So let's talk about what you want, because it's been a very reactive year in politics, right? We've been thrown things and we've relied on our elected officials to take science and data and numbers and come up with policies and make sure we follow them. But the pandemic is not behind us, but she is saying goodbye soon, we all hope. And you continue to be the president of the Board of Supervisors, and will. Tell me about your vision for San Francisco. What are some of the big issues that you want to tackle as board president, as supervisor of district of your district? And what are a couple things that you want to get done?
Obviously, you come in this role, you have a platform, there are things you want to accomplish, there are things you want to get done. You start to work harder, and then you get thrown into this pandemic. And so there are shifts and things you have to respond to right away. Even as we look at the number of cases that are coming right now in San Francisco, the highest number exists in 94124 zip code, which is Baby Hunters Point, which is in my area. So one of the things I'm majorly focused on is folks getting the vaccine, folks living safe and doing everything they can to keep themselves and community safe. That's of importance. We have a lot of unhoused folks in Baby Hunters Point now that are living in vehicles, more so than we've ever seen before. And so setting up a vehicle triage center where folks can go receive services, be able to live safe, and have the electricity, power, and sanitation services that they need, while we of course focus on permanent housing, is major. Violence right now has increased during the pandemic. We've had too many murders. We're not to the level where we were in the mid-2000s, but it's definitely too many people being killed, particularly to gun violence. And so trying to get the rest of San Francisco to really focus on understanding how we all have to combat violence, because it affects all of us. And if we don't all get focused on the ways to address violence, it's going to continue to be a problem for us. in the city. And of course, affordability, which is major. But as we talk about those things and things we want to accomplish, we still have to remember we want to protect people from being evicted, get folks from off the street. And so that the pandemic, the repercussions of the pandemic are still very real. Unemployment has gone up. So these are the things that we have to focus on in the immediate so that we can accomplish those bigger things that we want to see happen. Obviously, there are things we want to do. We were here with the district attorney a few months ago talking about the policy we introduced to make sure that we are not hiring police officers who have had history of misconduct, a history of racial profiling coming from other jurisdictions. We still have work to do in bringing community and police together. So there are so many things that we have to tackle, but we have to also be laser focused on really coming out at the end of this pandemic as we move forward.
So getting as many folks at D10, Baby Hunters Point, Shipyard area, all vaccinated, addressing homelessness in particular, folks living in their vehicles, and gun violence prevention, violence, and also police accountability. Did I get that right?
You got that right, along with protecting
Affordability.
being evicted.
Yes, and
Building
affordability.
affordable housing. I could go on.
There's some big, and you and I were on the Baby Alliance thing. Still are, maybe, I don't know if it's still happening. But one of the, you and I were, I think we're in that presentation where we got presented all the big developments that are happening in your district. I think Pier 70, Candlestick, and the Shipyard. So those are three major developments, thousands of units, I think, huge amount of stuff coming in the pipeline. How are you feeling about those projects? If all those three projects actually happen, I mean, that'll be it'll bring the center of gravity of our city into the southeast in a big way. And so how are you feeling about them? Where are they? And kind of like, how has the pandemic affected those three major projects in your district?
We're definitely excited that we're building so much affordable housing and housing in general in District 10. To your point, with Pier 70, the power station, we even have Slaves Lock who will come down the line, Candlestick. A lot of development got slowed down in the Shipyard because Tetra Tech falsified testing samples, and so the Navy has to retest. We've also, my office has also made sure that we have additional testing on Parcel A, where people actually currently live before they develop and build any more housing there. But I'm excited about all the projects in the district. Things are going well. We have people who are having jobs in construction, local folks are working, and we have the highest numbers of affordability, which has always been my main focus. We're also gonna have the Betrayal Station, the bus yard, that's gonna be coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
And we made sure that the RFP was written to make sure that it's at least 50% affordable and possibly 100%. So we'll see what developers come up with to possibly make that happen. So yeah, I'm excited about all of the growth of the district, all the housing that we come, and the fact that we fight 100% for affordable housing, and we're winning in terms of the percentages that are coming to the district.
So all those projects, Shipyard, Betrayal Yard, Pier 70, Candlestick, what do we think? 10 years they'll all be done? Like, if we're gonna sit here in 10 years, I will still look gorgeous. I don't know. If you keep smoking those cigars, maybe not. But we're both sitting here in a decade. I'm happily married and you are as well. Are all those projects gonna be finished?
No.
No.
And they're not intended to be. If and when we get everything taken care of to ensure safety in the shipyard, that's a long-term project. The power station is a long-term project. All these projects are long-term. A lot of it will be built out. We'll have new neighbors and folks living there, maintaining the current population. That part is exciting, but they won't be finished in 10 years, and they're not intended to be.
Got it, okay. Let's talk about transportation for a second. You very publicly came out against JFK Drive and the slow streets. Do you still feel the same way about the either temporary or permanent closure of some streets or parts of streets to cars after all of that, all the conversations and now kind of a lot more community discussions, do you feel like that it's still segregationist or would you call it recreational redlining?
So I'm not against slow streets. In fact, I fought for some, and I really think slow streets is a community process in the area where people are, and they need to make choices and decisions about that. I 100% feel that the closure of JFK is segregationist. And the fact that you would work hard to keep populations from being able to access one of the most amazing parks in the world is problematic for me. We don't have adequate transportation in the southeast sector of San Francisco and other areas of San Francisco. So just imagine being a mom or a family of 4 that lives in Baby Earns Park, and you want to go to Golden Gate Park, and you have to get on the bus, and you want to go have a picnic, or you want to be able to spend time out there. It's going to take you a couple hours to get there on the bus. You're not going to be able to take all the things that you would love to take on the bus because transportation is inadequate. And so if you want to be able to go spend time in Golden Gate Park as a family of 4 or even a bigger family, and you live in certain communities, unfortunately, you have to drive. This is not a Shamann Walton, 1 cars on the street. The problem is transportation isn't adequate. So when you shut off certain streets to certain aspects of transportation that people rely on in low-income communities, isolated communities, and disenfranchised communities, then you are shutting people out. And let's kill that part just real quick. Let's take that part out of the equation. I've been to JFK Drive several times, and I hope no one in San Francisco is excited about a space that looks like the 1957. And I know people have told me, you're spreading this propaganda that is untrue. I've been there. I've counted on one hand the diversity of it. This benefits a certain population of people, not even just race, but by class. That's problematic when you have a policy that's put in place that only benefits certain classes of people, that only benefits certain races. And if people are happy with that, and if people are okay with that, that's gonna always be a problem for me. So if you wanna have a conversation about what can we do to make it more environmentally friendly, what can we do to make it more bike friendly, more pedestrian friendly, how does that work? And how do we come up with a process to do that? And by the way, Rec and Park and MTA did not do that. They did not outreach to my district. They did not outreach to Chinatown area. They talked to the people in the surrounding community. They talked to people with means and people of a certain class and decided to make a decision, which is the bigger problem.
So I guess thank you for that. My only I think, and I'm taking my MTA hat off, President Walton, and just putting on my someone who's reading the news and has been going to JFK and is like, wait a second, this is awesome. Why would anyone say this? This is so great. And they might hear that and say, can't someone just drive to Fulton or drive to MLK, walk a little bit? If they have a bunch of stuff, take the stuff out of the car, walk half a block in. What do you say to someone who's you're only cutting off a small part of the street to create a new kind of promenade? You're not saying don't come to Golden Gate Park, don't come to JFK. You're just saying we're trying to do something different, interesting with this section of it, and there's still lots of places to park and bring your stuff. I don't think anyone would disagree that public transportation is inadequate to get to Golden Gate Park from that part of the city. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. But what would you say to someone who's you're not shutting people out, you're just, it's more inconvenient for a certain portion, but you can still park on Fulton and walk in.
Why aren't people saying, what do we do to make sure this space is accessible to everyone? Why are people not saying, when they go out to JFK Drive, you only see certain types of people there? Why aren't people saying that? And there are other issues and concerns with shutting down the street. We have emergency responders, whether it's the fire department, police department, ambulances, that have to get to and from certain areas. Look, for me, it's not just about the closure of the street. It represents so much more. And why are people saying, how can we make sure that everybody has access and everybody has equitable opportunity to this amazing space? To your point, it is an amazing space for people who have the opportunity to access it. But what about those who don't?
Okay. Have you figured out which family sitcom the Board of Supervisors is? I gave you 10 minutes.
You did. And I haven't gotten there. I mean, you got to pick a sitcom where there's a lot of dynamics, where there's a lot of different characters, and that's hard for a sitcom. I mean, now there are dramas that are probably more fitting for the Board of Supervisors and how we are. There are some things that come out from the wire that I see with us as a board, or just San Francisco as a whole, and some of the things that happen, which that series has some amazing and great writing. There's some Game of Thrones.
Oh, are you Daenerys Targaryen, or are you the hot king guy? That's the sister.
Daenerys is probably my favorite character.
Yes,
but
except at the end. Come on now.
I'm probably not her. She turned into.
Who are you in the game?
That unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
I mean, I'm probably more Jon Snow type of person.
Come on now. Okay, I'll give it to you.
I'm the good guy.
Yeah, you are the good guy. I guess last question, then we're gonna go to audience Q&A as it's 6:40, is really just kind of, I'd like to hopefully think past the pandemic. And I understand, we're still in it in Europe. We still need to get everyone vaccinated. We need to get past Delta and all this stuff. But what's one thing you're really excited about working on that you really want to get done in your tenure as president of the Board of Supervisors? Something that's really gets you excited when you wake up in the morning. That you're thinking about, we're really sinking your teeth into post-pandemic.
So there are two things. One, which is more immediate, as a lot of you may know, we voted to close juvenile home by the end of this year. And so making sure that we are re-envision the opportunity for young people who make mistakes to be successful versus setting them up for the prison pipeline. So that is major importance. And we just were able to pass the reparations working group. And so making sure that we come up with a reparations plan and a reparations package that's really gonna do something to address the wealth gap of Black people here in San Francisco, but also change the dynamic of so many negative outcomes over criminalization, lack of education opportunities, home ownership, and really provide a space to bring folks back and put Black folks on an equitable playing field here in the city. If we can, let me rephrase that, when we get the reparations package complete and achieve reparations here in San Francisco, that's something I think that the entire city can be proud of and should be proud of.
Well, I'll just add one more thing, which is we are proud of you. I'm proud to know you, and I think I'm really glad that San Francisco has someone like you leading us and leading our board. So thank you for all your service to our city. Let's give a round of applause to questions. If you have a wireless mic, why don't we go right here in the front, and then if you have anyone on Zoom, our Zoom friends, our Zoom mishpacha, if you have questions, type it into the chat as well. But let's go first with our friend in the front.
You're gonna have everybody do like an intro, or you just gonna go straight to the question, or how do you want?
Oh, maybe just say your name and then go straight to your question.
I'm just gonna hold the mic, so a lot of people don't know how to speak with their mask on, so I'm just gonna hold it for you.
My name is PJ. I'm a resident of the Soma district, whichever that one is. My question for you is, what is your plan to rally the NAACP chapter San Francisco, as well as all of the Black Greek NPHC chapters that are here in San Francisco to support your initiatives behind, the vaccination and the testing, behind, affordability of housing, behind, getting our youth access to quality education, all the different initiatives that you spoke on just now, especially with the homelessness crisis affecting most predominantly African Americans or Latino community. What plan do you have to make sure the people that are already here, the NAACP, Black Greeks, that have capacity and networks to support you, what's your plan to get everybody on the same accord to rally behind your vision?
Well, one of the things, I have great relationships, obviously, with a lot of leaders of these organizations. And when we set up events, when we set up, when we host things in community, I reach out to those leaders, they come and they participate. And as my role as a policymaker, it's actually more in support of the things that they do. So the NAACP has something that they want to do, and they want me to come support and to do everything I can to be a part of getting the word out and the message out. They'll reach out to me. Same thing with our Greek organizations. And I play a role in both. I'm a member of the NAACP, I'm a member of a Greek organization. I'm a member of so many different Black organizations here in San Francisco and across the Bay Area. But my role is more of a vessel to bring everyone together and responding and making sure that I do what I can to support them. They all have leaders, presidents that have a platform and a focus. And so my role is more of supporting and being there for them. I don't see it as my role to galvanize those organizations because they have leaders. In some cases, I would be out of line if I tried to do it that way for my policy role, but definitely work to support some of the things that they do. And at times they bring things to me that we end up turning into legislation or turning into policy. But it's very supportive role of the leaders that are amongst those entities.
Awesome. Next question. Over there in the floral patterned button-down shirt, or maybe pineapples.
I'm Mike, and I'm curious about where you see allyship being most needed in the city right now. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I think that's a broad question. If you mean allyship with the Black community, allyship with the LGBT community. If you're talking about allyship for the Black community, the main thing that we need folks to do is to understand that we know what we need. And I think sometimes that's lost in translation. I think there are a lot of times where people who want to be helpful think that they need to speak for us, talk for us, and tell us the direction that we need to go in. But I need our allies to understand we know our needs in our community, and we need you to support the initiatives and the things that we propose, whether it's reparations, whether it's the $120 million that the mayor and I redirected from the police department to go to the Black community and those initiatives. We need folks to support the things that we say that we need and really listen to the Black community. And that goes for every community, right? I can't speak for the LGBTQ community. I can't speak for the Latino community. I can't speak for the Asian community. I can be a vessel of support for those communities when they tell me what they need and be there to help them achieve what they want. It's the same thing for the Black community. We tell you what we want, we tell you what we need, and we need folks to understand that and just support the things that we say we want to do and want to accomplish. That is very important, and I think that goes for all communities.
Love that. All right, thank you. Next question, let's go over here to our friend in the front. Megan Tomas, work for it. He'll hand you, he'll shove the mic into your mouth.
Thank you. Hi, David, Mission Local. In June, you and Mayor Breed had a back and forth about bullying and respect. Is that still a simmering thing, or have things kind of moved on? How's that progressed?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, folks get passionate about work. And I think that's, part of our role is to make sure that we hold each other accountable, whether it's the executive branch here in San Francisco or the legislative branch here in San Francisco. But we're going to always be clear about making sure that we are respectful to each other. And I think that this current Board of Supervisors is very respectful to department heads and very respectful to the mayor's team, and we're gonna continue to do that.
Love that. Do we have a Zoom question? Is that what we got?
Yeah, we got one. I'm gonna paraphrase this one a little bit. So this one is talking about a lot of the vacant office spaces downtown. And so they kind of want to hear your thoughts about any possible community meetings or what you have envisioned for revisioning the vacant office spaces downtown due to COVID or anything that's like housing, art spaces, et cetera, kind of just push your vision. And is there going to be anything that's like kind of in the works?
I mean, the short answer to that question is, a lot of major cities are grappling with the fact that there are a lot of vacancies downtown. Big corporations and big businesses have not been coming into work in our cities, and so that conversation is ongoing and continuing. I will say that we sold several buildings for $500,000, one for over $1 billion, which gives us hope in terms of the fact that businesses still want to be here and are not leaving San Francisco. But there is no definitive answer in terms of what we're going to do with these buildings, what's going to happen. We're still in the pandemic, unfortunately, and those conversations are ongoing. But there are conversations about what these buildings are going to turn into. Is it going to be housing? Or are they going to shift what kind of businesses that we have downtown? But we're nowhere near being able to have a conversation about any definitive opportunities right now.
Cool. We got a question in the front over here. Chris, was it?
Jeff.
Not even
Almost.
close.
We haven't officially met, but I typically usually see you playing basketball in the morning at the gym. Tell me about your mid-range jumper. Totally kidding. You can answer.
Oh, because I was gonna need to know what that was. I didn't know what that was.
It's something to behold, just know that.
Okay.
Thank you for your leadership and the push for reparations. I'm really curious, how long have you been thinking about the idea of reparations? What were those early conversations with your colleagues, with the mayor, with your constituents like? And where are we currently at with it? Where are the next steps and timeline?
So in terms of my jumper,
Can you explain what that is to me?
my mid, when there's, a jump shot in basketball.
But like, do you have to be in the middle of the court for it?
Mid range is like, halfway, let's say halfway between the 3-point line and the out of bounds line.
Okay, so it's past 3-point line.
No, it's definitely not fast.
No, it's in between that and the mid.
We're like around the
inside.
free throw line.
So it's like middle of the road.
Exactly.
Alright.
So that's the best answer.
So I mean, sorry, you guys don't know what this is either, some of you, so I'm just asking on
We can
your
look it up.
behalf,
We can Google
so that you
mid-range
know.
jumper too.
Okay.
We can Google that. But yeah, that's the best aspect of my game. The only reason I can still play basketball is because of my mid-range jumper. So we just we just appointed the 15-member reparations committee. They've had 2 meetings. They elected a chair. In the first meeting, they elected a vice chair. In the second meeting, so they're doing the work. The entire planning phase and the work they're gonna do is gonna be about 18 months. And during that, they'll come up with prioritizing injustices of what is happening to Black folks in San Francisco, and then coming up with a package in terms of how we're gonna monetize, we address those injustices, and really what we're gonna do. It could be like, let's just give an example, and I'm not saying this is what's gonna happen in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but let's just say from an education standpoint, they come up with a way to make sure that every young person that graduates from high school in San Francisco and they're Black and they grew up here, they get to go to any college in San Francisco for free, or any training program for free. And that could be one example. I think there are going to be some aspects of universal basic income that are going to come out through the reparations plan. But I don't want to get ahead of the task force. That's why they're in place. And again, they've only had 2 meetings. And this is a group of diverse Black folks that understand what has happened here in San Francisco, a lot of expertise across the board, and they're ready to come up with some strategies and plans to really address the issues that have existed for.
All right, let's try to get one more question. Any more? Okay, let's go right here. Tomas, did we lose you? Oh, we did. He's with Aisha. What's your question? You can just project.
Question about sexual harassment and assault committed by city employees, including but not limited to police or public officials. And I was wondering if there's anything in the works to make reporting easier or to increase accountability when it happens.
Is that loud enough for Zoom?
Yep.
Yeah.
In terms of if there's anything in the works to make it easier to report sexual harassment or crimes committed against folks in the workplace, there's not conversations that I've been a part of along that lines. I mean, I think that, and people may disagree, but I think that we have been very clear in San Francisco about making sure that if there are concerns or issues that come out in the workplace, there are a range of places where you can report it, a range of folks where you can go to. Everybody gets trained, particularly in leadership, on sexual harassment and mistreatment of employees and what that looks like. And yeah, we're definitely going to continue to do more to make sure that folks feel safe in the workplace and don't have any concerns or issues about reporting problems or concerns or mistreatment or sexual harassment or any type of harassment in the workplace. And we're going to continue to do that, including some of our work around the Equal Employment Opportunity Office and what they investigate. But yeah, there are things in place. I haven't had specific conversations necessarily about with your question, to answer your question. However, there are a lot of trainings that we do already right now that are focused on making sure folks feel safe.
I guess I just want to ask a follow-up with that. Not on that particular thing, but about the whole corruption thing, you know, Mohammed and head of building inspection and ecology and like all the, and the mayor, like, you know, all these accusations and in some cases admittances of ethics violations or corruption. I mean, where, like, do you think it has shaken San Franciscans' trust in their government? And how do you think we recover from this? You know, because it was all really happening before the pandemic hit, still kind of happening. Kind of, how do you restore faith in government when all this stuff is, you know, there's all these reports of folks accepting gifts and people losing their jobs and resigning and paying fines and fees?
So yeah, it has definitely shaken the trust of the public. Anytime folks who are elected or folks who are department heads do things that are not in line with what their duties are and take advantage of the system, it's going to, unfortunately, you know, folks are going to be upset and it's going to mess up public trust. But you know, we've done several things so far on this board in terms of splitting up the Department of Public Works, making sure Ecology paid back the money that they owe to the ratepayers for the things that they've done. And a lot of top people on Ecology have lost their jobs. A lot of department heads have lost their jobs through this process. More legislation and more work is coming. City attorney has done investigations on these departments. And so we're going to be relentless about holding folks accountable for the mistreatment, misuse of public resources and for what they've done with the public trust. So that work is going to continue, and you've already seen some things come from that, and there's going to be more work to do. But it's, yeah, the public trust has been violated. The only way we can get it back is to demonstrate that it won't be tolerated.
Amazing. The president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, the one, the only Shamann Walton. We are so honored that you would come here tonight. A couple quick things. We have some amazing events coming up. I want to quickly plug tomorrow. We have an event with the leaders in Christian, Jewish, and Muslim denominations in San Francisco on the place of religious sanctuaries in our society. On Thursday, we have Congressman Hakeem Jeffries here for a free meet and greet and talk. He's amazing. He's from Brooklyn, gorgeous, powerful, incredible member of Congress. He'll be here from 5:30 to 7, then from 7 to 8, we have the new Secretary of State of California, Shirley Weber, talking about voting rights, free and fair elections, and the recall election happening in a few weeks. Next week, we have Senator Raphael Warnock coming in on Wednesday. There are only 10 spots left for that event because it is limited in capacity. So if you're interested in supporting the senator, you can go on welcometomannings.com. We've got a bunch of amazing events in September as well. FYI, Mannings will be closed from August 27th to September 7th. Please, if you are not already a sponsor, and I see some sponsors in the audience, that is how we've survived the pandemic and how we've been able to continue on. It is $36 a month. You can cancel anytime. It is how we are alive, and there are QR codes on all the pillars. You can scan with your phone, or you can find myself or Ram or Tomas or Precious afterwards. If you'd like to take a picture, please do, and you can tag us at Welcome to Manny's. We love that. We love sharing it so we can spread the message. Supervisor, President, Sir, Hero, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Well, you can always, of course, email the office at waltonstaff@sfgov.org. You can email me at shamann.walton@sfgov.org, and social media outlets, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and it's just my name, Shamann Walton.
Or find him on a Friday night at Cafe Envy, smoking a cigar, maybe, most definitely. If you are not tonight, we have 2 more events. At 7:30, we have our monthly story time. That is happening in the front. The theme of tonight's story time is rebirth. So it's an open forum for folks to tell their own stories. We have a bunch of people coming tonight. It'll be beautiful. If you have a story of rebirth that you want to tell the community, that'll be in the front at 7:30 in 30 minutes. Happening right now is our emergency strategy session on Afghanistan. We're going to be talking as a community, coming up with ways that we can address the situation in Afghanistan, support folks in Afghanistan. Some of you may not know that I'm actually an Afghan American myself. My father's from Afghanistan, so this is an issue that's very important to me personally. We also have Aisha Wahab here, the only Afghan American woman in elected office in California, right, or in the whole country?
The first Afghan American in the United States.
In the United States, first African American in the United States. So she's here tonight. If you're not in those 2 events, I would just ask if you could exit through the back door because we have about 50 people waiting to come in on that side. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good night, and another round of applause for President Shamann Walton.